The rain came down in silver sheets across the royal highway, and before anyone could stop it, a black carriage carrying the kingdom's beloved prince overturned into the rushing floodwaters. Guards shouted, horses panicked, and noblemen froze in terror as the current dragged the unconscious heir away from safety. While everyone else feared for their own lives, one ordinary young woman leaped into the raging water without hesitation, risking everything for a stranger she had never met. She pulled him to safety with trembling hands, not knowing that the man whose heartbeat she had just saved belonged to a palace that had already promised his future, and his heart, to another woman. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change lives, please like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue bringing you emotional journeys like this one. The morning had begun with soft gray clouds stretching across the countryside, and by midday the skies had opened into one of the heaviest rainstorms the region had seen in years. Although the rain was fierce, daylight still flooded the landscape, turning every field into shimmering mirrors that reflected the pale sky. Near the edge of a quiet farming village lived a young woman named Alara, whose life had never been easy. She earned a modest living gathering herbs, helping elderly neighbors repair their gardens, and caring for abandoned animals that wandered into her small cottage. People often described her as invisible because she never demanded attention, never complained, and never expected rewards for her kindness. She believed that goodness mattered even when no one noticed. That afternoon, while collecting medicinal plants beside the swollen river, she heard the terrifying sound of cracking wood followed by desperate cries echoing across the valley. Looking toward the stone bridge, she saw the royal carriage collapse as frightened horses slipped on the rain-soaked road. Before anyone could react, the powerful current swept one unconscious passenger downstream. The royal guards rushed along the riverbank, but the water moved too violently for them to enter. They shouted orders at one another while precious seconds disappeared. Alara did not pause to calculate the danger. She dropped everything she carried and ran straight into the freezing water. The current slammed against her with frightening force, yet she kept swimming until she reached the drifting figure. Fighting exhaustion with every stroke, she managed to pull him toward a fallen tree whose branches reached into the flood. She wrapped one arm around the branch and the other around the stranger until several villagers joined together with ropes to pull them both ashore. The unconscious man slowly opened his eyes as daylight broke through the clouds. His clothing, though soaked and covered in mud, was clearly made from the finest fabrics in the kingdom. His signet ring bore the unmistakable crest of the royal family. Gasps spread through the crowd as everyone realized that the man lying in the grass was Prince Alastair, the only son of King Cedric. The guards immediately surrounded the prince, thanking Alara with hurried words before carrying him back toward the palace. Everything happened so quickly that she barely had time to catch her breath. No one asked her name. No one offered payment. Within minutes, the road was empty again, leaving only muddy footprints behind. Alara returned home believing that she had simply done what anyone should have done. Days later, the palace announced that Prince Alastair had fully recovered and that preparations for his long-planned engagement ceremony would continue as scheduled. The entire kingdom celebrated the upcoming marriage between the prince and Lady Vivian, daughter of an influential noble family whose alliance promised political stability and prosperity. Newspapers praised destiny. The palace praised tradition. No one mentioned the unknown woman who had saved the future king. Prince Alastair remembered almost nothing about the accident except one image that refused to leave his mind. Through the blur of rain and rushing water, he remembered gentle hands refusing to let him drown and determined eyes filled with courage rather than fear. He repeatedly asked his attendants to identify the woman who had rescued him, but every report came back incomplete. The guards had been too focused on protecting him to learn her identity. The unanswered question quietly settled inside his heart. Meanwhile, Alara continued living exactly as before. She helped an elderly carpenter rebuild his fence after the storm. She comforted a child whose injured dog eventually recovered under her care. She harvested herbs to prepare medicine for villagers who could not afford expensive physicians. She never told anyone she had rescued the prince because she believed kindness lost its meaning when it became a story told for admiration. Weeks later, the king announced a grand daytime festival in honor of the prince's recovery and the approaching royal wedding. Every village received invitations to attend. Reluctantly, Elara joined her neighbors. The palace gardens glowed beneath brilliant afternoon sunlight. Musicians performed cheerful melodies while artists displayed beautiful sculptures and children laughed among colorful flowers. Noble families filled the marble courtyards with elegant clothing and confident smiles. Elara felt completely out of place. As she wandered through the gardens, she noticed an elderly groundskeeper struggling beneath the weight of fallen branches left from another passing storm. Without hesitation, she began helping him gather them. Prince Alistair happened to walk through the garden at that exact moment. He stopped instantly. The face he had searched for every day since the accident stood only a few steps away. Although weeks had passed, he recognized the same calm eyes that had looked at him through pouring rain. Gratitude overwhelmed him. The prince approached her with genuine warmth, thanking her publicly for saving his life. The surrounding guests fell silent in astonishment. Noble families exchanged uncomfortable glances while servants whispered among themselves. For the first time, everyone learned the identity of the mysterious hero. King Cedric rewarded Elara with gold, land, and an honored place among distinguished guests. She politely accepted only enough money to repair several neglected homes in her village and asked that the remaining reward be donated to orphan children throughout the kingdom. Her humility impressed nearly everyone. Nearly everyone. Lady Vivian watched the growing admiration surrounding Elara with quiet resentment. She had spent years preparing to become queen, believing respect could be earned through status and appearance. Yet within a single afternoon, an unknown village woman had captured the affection of the people without seeking any attention at all. The prince found himself thinking about Elara constantly. Not because she had saved him, but because she represented everything he admired. She expected nothing, judged no one, and carried quiet strength that no royal education could teach. As wedding preparations continued, Alistair began questioning whether duty alone could sustain a lifetime of happiness. The kingdom assumed the engagement represented love. Only those inside the palace knew it had always been an agreement between powerful families rather than two willing hearts. King Cedric noticed the growing uncertainty in his son and reminded him that a future king belonged to his people before himself. Personal feelings, he insisted, must never outweigh responsibility. Alistair respected his father deeply. Yet each visit to the villages reminded him that true leadership meant understanding ordinary lives, not merely protecting royal traditions. He began spending afternoons traveling quietly through nearby communities, helping rebuild roads damaged by storms and speaking with farmers, craftsmen, teachers, and healers. Elara occasionally joined those community efforts. Working side by side without royal ceremony allowed them to discover one another honestly. She challenged his assumptions, encouraged his compassion, and never treated him differently because of his title. He admired her courage. She admired his willingness to learn. Their growing friendship remained respectful, gentle, and unspoken. Lady Vivian interpreted every shared smile as betrayal. Driven by jealousy, she secretly spread false rumors claiming Elara had deliberately rescued the prince only to gain wealth and royal attention. Some members of the court quickly accepted the lies because they preferred familiar nobility over inconvenient truth. Soon whispers followed Elara wherever she walked. She could have defended herself publicly. Instead, she returned quietly to serving her village. The people who truly knew her never believed the accusations. One warm afternoon, disaster struck again when a severe landslide blocked the kingdom's main trade route. Several workers became trapped beneath fallen timber and broken stone. Panic spread rapidly through nearby towns. Before soldiers fully organized a rescue, Elara had already gathered volunteers. Prince Alistair joined them without hesitation. For hours beneath bright daylight, villagers, laborers, guards, and nobles worked shoulder to shoulder lifting debris and saving lives. Elara risked herself repeatedly to reach trapped survivors. Alastair ignored every warning urging him to remain safely behind the rescue teams. Together they saved every injured worker. Among those rescued was Lady Vivian's own younger brother. Overwhelmed with gratitude and shame, Vivian finally confronted the truth she had spent weeks denying. The woman she had feared was exactly as everyone described, compassionate, selfless, and incapable of manipulation. She confessed her lies before the royal court. Silence filled the great hall. Many nobles lowered their eyes in embarrassment. King Cedric realized that the character of a future queen could never be measured by family name alone. That afternoon, he walked through the palace gardens with his son, reflecting on everything that had happened since the storm. He admitted that kingdoms survived through justice, not appearances. He also acknowledged something he had resisted for weeks. No arranged alliance could equal a partnership built upon courage, kindness, humility, and mutual respect. The engagement between Alastair and Vivian ended peacefully by mutual agreement. Although disappointed, Vivian accepted responsibility for her mistakes and devoted herself to charitable work across the kingdom, determined to become worthy of the forgiveness she had received. Months later, beneath radiant afternoon sunshine, the palace welcomed people from every village for a celebration unlike any before it. There were no barriers separating nobles from farmers, no reserved tables based on wealth, and no grand displays of superiority. Children laughed freely through the gardens while musicians played joyful melodies across the courtyards. King Cedric announced that the future of the kingdom would be built not only upon tradition but upon compassion. He introduced Elara not as the woman who had rescued a prince, but as the woman who had reminded an entire kingdom what true greatness looked like. Prince Alastair stood beside her with unmistakable pride. Their love had not been born from luxury or destiny. It had grown from sacrifice, honesty, forgiveness, and shared service to others. The people cheered because they saw hope rather than perfection. Elara never forgot her humble cottage or the villagers who had shaped her generous heart. Even after moving into the palace, she continued visiting communities throughout the kingdom during bright mornings and sunny afternoons, supporting schools, hospitals, shelters, and families facing hardship. She insisted that every royal celebration include ordinary citizens because kindness belonged to everyone. The kingdom slowly changed. Servants received greater respect. Orphans found loving homes. Farmers gained fair opportunities. Children grew up hearing the story of the young woman who had jumped into dangerous floodwaters without asking who needed saving. Her courage inspired generations far beyond that single rainy afternoon. Before we end this story, leave a meaningful comment telling us what touched your heart the most. Do you believe true love is built through sacrifice, or do you believe kindness always finds its way back to those who give it freely? If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. As the sun settled gently across the peaceful kingdom, its warm golden light reflected not on crowns or jewels, but on grateful faces filled with hope. The greatest miracle had never been a prince surviving the flood or a palace changing its traditions. The greatest miracle was that one ordinary act of selfless kindness had transformed countless lives, proving that love chosen by the heart will always shine brighter than power chosen by tradition, and that no title, no wealth, and no throne can ever equal the quiet strength of a compassionate soul.